Okay. I show 24 people in the meeting, so I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining my presentation today. This is a little bit similar to our sort of standing monthly calls that were canceled for this month due to the work that we're doing that I'll be talking about today. This is the first call. There will be an additional call a little later in the month as we work towards the changes I'm going to talk about. Initial call was scheduled for an hour. I'm not quite sure we'll use all of that, but much like the sort of monthly calls we do, if you do have a question, please type it into the question area. That'll show up and go to meeting. And you know, if you need immediate assistance, you can use the hand raise icon, and I'll do my best to try to get you involved. Okay, so here's what we're talking about. Okay, so we've been working towards a number of changes that are going to be happening on the New York Connects system. One of which is a new portal. The New York Connects resource directory is going to change. That adds a level of functionality that we're adding to the system that is going to change up a little bit of how you guys add taxonomy to services and programs and how they show up on pages. Additionally, I want to talk a little bit about what the new search result pages look like and talk a smidge about ILCs. I did the training with them last week, and we'll be starting to let them edit records here in the future. And then I'll open it up to questions to see what we can solve for you. Okay, so the good news is that we are working towards a new New York Connects website. It has a number of features I'll be talking about here in a second, but unfortunately I am not allowed to show it to you yet. The website will be going live on September 30th. That second meeting that we have in this series is when I'll be able to show you what it looks like and click through and give you a demonstration on it. However, as the design work is still being completed and we're still waiting sign off from the various stakeholders, you know, I'm not able to sort of just do a normal demo here. So what I will be doing is I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the features and how it impacts what we do on the care director side, just to give you sort of an understanding of what's changing and to sort of anticipate that there'll be a few little tweaks to the rules around how we probably want to create records in the system in preparation for this change. So there's a couple new features that we're adding to the portal. So the first one is that we will be able to go ahead and a user will be able to send what's called an information request from the New York Connects website, and it will appear in PeerPlace. Users will be able to log in and create accounts, and then that will sync up with an account in PeerPlace saying that they requested information. Additionally, we've added the ability, or we're implementing the ability of users that have a care plan within the PeerPlace application will be able to get those care plans electronically through the New York Connects website. There's a few rules around that, and there is a separate training session for the users that need to know sort of the details around that. But for the most part, this is just to let you know that that information is coming and that that's a feature that we will be adding. Additionally, the portal design is brand new. Like I said, I can't show it to you yet, but we've spent a great deal of time on the design. We've had focus groups to sort of talk about usability, and we've really streamlined and improved the way the website works, and again, in my humble opinion, it is quite more user-friendly than the New York Connects website we have today. Additionally, sort of as part of that redesign, or sort of a huge component of that redesign, is we're adding search tools to that New York Connects website. There's two new types of search. And if it will let me go forward in my thing. Okay, so we have the keyword search that we are familiar with today. This is when we are going to New York Connects and we're typing in a service or a name, and it populates that keyword box, and we're able to search on things that we've added as taxonomies or AKAs. That functionality is pretty much the same. We have added the functionality to search by city, and the system does know the difference between counties and cities now, and there is a level of detail there where, if there is a city that has the same name as a county, you can say which one of those it is. But for the most part, the keyword search is the same search we have today. We have added two additional search functions. The first is a category search, which I'll show you in a little bit, that allows users to sort of go through the categorization of records, and significantly better than the list we have on the main page today. Additionally, there's a guided search. The guided search allows sort of like question and answer functionality that allows you to specify which entries you need, and sort of we can stack the questions and return results based on a user's answers. What the impact that this has on how we use Care Director comes down to the taxonomy. And we don't necessarily have to change how we use taxonomy currently, but we do need to sort of understand a little bit more how taxonomy impacts these records, as both the new search functions, well, the existing keyword search uses the same taxonomy logic we have today. If I add a taxonomy term to a record, it's going to show up in the keyword search. However, the category and guided search are set up around the hierarchy of taxonomy, which is not a concept we've really touched on much previously. So taxonomy exists in a hierarchy. You might not see it on a daily basis, but if I look at my screen here, right, we can see that food has a number of entries below it, and even below that there are more categories, right? A category in taxonomy can have 3, 4, 5, numerous levels. The hierarchy of categories is not something we've really dealt with in how we add taxonomy currently. The recommendation previous to this has been, okay, add the taxonomy term that is closest to what the service or program does, and the rules that we've set for those new search options do encourage us to understand a little bit about the hierarchy and where things show up. For example, in that category search I referred to, that new search utility that we're building out, a basic need would lead me to food. Once someone does a search for, hey, I have a basic need, and that need is I need food, we return a page that has filtering results, much like you would on like Amazon or eBay or any e-commerce site. The terms that we use for those filters are set by the taxonomy attached to the record. Okay, so in this case, a meal could be a necessary filter that we would put on the taxonomy or the search results. So for example, here, our basic needs leads to food, which then leaves us to meals down here. Users will be able to add multiple filters against the record. So, but they have to be within the same, they have to be related to the core taxonomy that was put on the record. So for example, using my food meals example, if I have something that is both a basic need of food, and that food includes food production, but it has another taxonomy term that is not within sort of the hierarchy of the taxonomy, that won't show up in the filtering. But if the taxonomy added to the service is within the levels of what I'm looking for, then it will. And I'll show you this in a second of how these pieces sort of put together and how you can find this stuff in Care Director. What does this mean, however? So for the most of the records, you're not going to have to change anything. It's not so much that starting October 1st, after this is in production, your records won't show in this new search tool. They will. For the most part, most of the records that we have are already there. We've been testing against the data we have in production today, and there's tons of records there. However, going forward, or if you want to review your records, the way to do that or know that the taxonomies that you're adding into the system will show in these new search tools we're building. The primary thing we need to do there is make sure that we're adding a level 2 or 3 taxonomy. So in hope to sort of give you guys a hand in knowing where these taxonomy terms are, I've changed the view that shows up, or the way that adding a taxonomy to a program shows up. And I'll show you that in a second right now. And I should have opened up my provider first, but so this is the exact same process that we've gone through previously. I'm in my provider, and that provider has a program or service, depending on what you want to call it, and I go into Heirs Taxonomy to add a taxonomy term. The difference comes in when we add a new taxonomy term. This screen is exactly the same. However, in this view here, I've moved the level column of what what taxonomy terms we are making available or we can add into the system to make the level more visible. And the easiest way to say, okay, how is something going to show up in my terms, is to make sure that we're adding a record that's on levels 2 or 3. So in this case, I can add a level 5 taxonomy term, and it still will populate in the keyword search. However, the rules that we set around these new search tools is that it's going to automatically load anything that's got a level 2 or 3. So in this case, I'm searching for computer and I'm not actually getting anything that's a level 2 or 3. So maybe I need to revise what I search on for, say, technical, I still don't know, where was it? Yeah. And here I can find that, all right, I can find a level 3 one that matches what I'm looking for. So, the only real rule change around adding taxonomy is that when we add taxonomy, we do want to be cognitive of what level we're adding it at. And if possible, we want to make sure that we add a level 2 or 3 taxonomy. I'm going to pause here, and I see that I have a few questions, so I'll go ahead and answer those. If you do have questions, feel free to put them into the questions area, and I will do my best to answer them. So let's see what we got. First question is sort of a organizational thing. There are this presentation is giving you twice, once today and once on Thursday. If you're coming today on the 12th, you do not need to come to Thursday. It's going to be the same thing. And then the next question is, on our existing taxonomy, how do we know what, or do you need to go back and look at each one? You don't. There's a little too many records in there to go in and say, is this all going to show up? What I would advise there is, once we have the tools in a system where you can search, and much like, say, here, right, you'll be able to say, okay, much like you can add a county to our search tools now, you'll be able to give the system a zip code or a county or a city, and then you can look and see what results show up. If I do a search for basic needs and food, and then on this screen I put in my zip code, and I don't see something I expect to see, then yes, at that point it might be a matter of looking at what taxonomies on those records. One thing I can do, which I don't have in production yet, but I could definitely do it for y'all, is on the dashboard screen that lives here, this one that says taxonomy and AKAs, I can set us up with a view in this page that shows you what taxonomies you've used and what level they are. And let me work on that a bit. I should be able to give you a page where you can look at, okay, here are all the taxonomy terms I'm using, and I might be even able to get you down to what categories it's showing in. So that's a good idea, Sue. I will work on that and get a dashboard in here where we can see that. Yep. The taxonomy pieces themselves in Character or the hierarchy piece is a little bit hidden. It does, it lives in settings, configuration, and then down under taxonomies. From here, though, if you ever want to look and see what the hierarchy looks like, we can load a tree view here that shows us sort of where things are. I have updated the security roles to where we can see this. It is just a little bit tucked behind where folks can't. So the next question is, Lucia, is, what levels of taxonomy are they highest to lowest? It does go lowest to highest. So, if I look at basic needs and then food, and then let's say meals, okay? So, basic needs would be our level 1, food would be our level 2, and then meals, and anything under meals are 3 and 4. Now, the structure of the taxonomy is sort of our baseline for how the different search tools are built. If we do find ourselves needing to open up one of these more detailed categories, that is something we'll be able to do if we find the need. So like, let's say we eventually want to add something to our categories where you're just looking for, I'm just going to say, meals instead of food, and we want to have the pieces underneath that show up. It is a system administrator function, but we would be able to add those categories in if we do find a need somewhere down the line. And the next question is, will counties be responsible for adding these? Yes. So, ever since we started training, one of the main and primary suggestions was to make sure that you have at least one taxonomy term per program or service. This is essentially a continuation of that. Whereas, say, previously we didn't ask you to be cognitive of what level it is. It's the rule essentially is going to change from, instead of just adding whatever seems closest to your program, you can still add something that's an exact match, but we are going to ask that you do add level 1 or level 2 taxonomy if you are able to. Okay. So at its core, that's the primary difference. Previously we were just adding whatever taxonomies seemed to match, and if it wasn't close, we would use AKAs to sort of fill in that gaps on the keyword search. That process still works. We still can add AKAs if we need something like, a specific name of a service. However, this functionality, the AKAs don't count in these new features we're building out. We are using the sort of structure of taxonomy as our sort of basis for how it was designed. That way, if 6 years from now we need to reload new taxonomy, the hierarchy is already in sort of the logic of the page, and we can adjust it and move it around as need be. So the primary difference is now we are wanting to make sure that we add taxonomies that, if necessary, allow us to filter. Now, for example, if I was just adding something for food, I wouldn't necessarily need to add the specific related taxonomies. However, if you are adding something specific to food, or something, right, or one of my broad categories, we do encourage you to add something in those 2 levels so that it does show up on filtering. Okay. That's my little question box. I hope I answered them. Okay, so for the most part, like I said, what we're doing doesn't change too much. There is one other thing that is kind of important. All right, currently on the New York Connects website, when you search on something and you get results back, it looks like this. We give you the name of the service, a link to the provider information, and the street address of where it is. One of the things that we are doing in the work is we are improving it. So it looks like this now. So, not only are we fixed a bit of the spacing, but the important piece is we are taking the description from the service and we are putting it on the search results page. Previously here, you had to click on what you were looking for to bring up the description and the details of the record. In the new design, we're showing you the description sort of out of the gate. Additionally, you'll see here that like provider isn't an actual hyperlink. That information is now stored on the provider detail page. And we are keeping the provider address, and if there is a website, we will show that website in an icon in the new design. So so what does this mean? This means that services and programs that do not have descriptions are going to show up much like our old site did. In a world where I don't have a description for something and I'm looking at a page that has them, that information is not quite as useful as one that does have a description. So one of the items I'm going to ask you guys to work on, as this stuff gets put into production and we start to sort of break out the records, is to make sure that you have descriptions in all of your programs and services if you are able to. It's going to be important going forward to have that information so that these records make a little bit more sense to consumers using the New York Connect's website. If you have never done this, I do have a way of you finding what records don't have descriptions. So, from the main sort of area of Care Director, if you go to the Dashboards area, this dashboard piece here, you can click on it and load up a listing of different dashboards types we've built. If I go to the Programs dashboard, by default it loads up a listing of every program you have in the system. Well, one of the things we can do here is, this view here just shows me, here are all the things for my team. But you can click on that view pull down. That's what this is. It's called the view pull down. And one of these should be programs without descriptions. So by loading up this program dashboard and changing our view to programs without descriptions, you will get a list of any programs that would be missing that information when someone goes to New York Connects. And I'll send out the specific directions on how to do this piece a little bit later today. Okay, looks like I got a few questions, so let me see what those are. All right, first question is, do these search results do not show a phone number? If they do not have a phone number, is that a good thing to put in the description? Not exactly. So in the current system, it does show a phone number in general, but we have improved how that works. And I'll just take a second to explain how the phone number stuff works. All right. So on our provider record, okay, there is a spot for phone number. So if I go here, there's primary phone, okay? The way the system is designed, and we've improved this implementation a bit, is if there is a phone number in the provider record, which is kind of where the stuff we loaded in the data feed is, that phone number will show up on the portal or on the New York Connect's website. However, if the service has a specific phone number and you were to enter that on the program itself, and that's done through the phone number piece here in the record. So in a world where I only have a phone number for the provider, we will show that on the portal. However, if there is a program or service specific phone number, that phone number will show up in the system. Additionally, if we have the different phone call types or phone line types, like here you can see I've got a fax number, a cell number, and a a line for disabled folks, we are now showing all of those numbers on the portal. So, in a world where you have a provider and it's got a phone number, or well, if you got a provider and it doesn't have a phone number, if you just have the one number, you can totally just put that in on the provider record, and it will show up in New York Connects. In a world where you know a little bit more detail, you can put that information in the program, and it will show up on the portal too. So yes, you can put a phone number in the description if you like, but we do have some tools around it that will probably make that a little bit better. It doesn't seem to be showing what I'm doing. Can everyone see my screen? Let me... okay. Maybe I just need to move a little bit slower then. Okay. So the next question is, is there a way to add a second address for a provider? Unfortunately not. In a world where a provider has 2 locations, currently in the system, the way to do that is to have 2 different providers and have different physical addresses for those providers. You can link the providers together in this parent provider function, and there is some tool sets we have that allow us to copy the services between the different locations. Putting an address against a specific program is an enhancement I am currently working on, but it won't be for this year. And the last question is, how do we get to the taxonomy tree? It is a little bit hidden. It lives under settings, config, and then taxonomy, and then you load up the taxonomy terms. One thing I should try to do is to see if I can get this within a dashboard for you. I should be able to load this page in a dashboard and save you those clicks. So by the time we meet again and we get this piece live, I'll work on that and see if I can get that a little bit more clearer for you. So, yeah, main gist of this is, in a world where we're showing the descriptions, it's totally useful to have a description in our service so that we're not showing people just a list of names. We put a good bit of effort into making it so that the results, are a little bit more human readable. And again, my hope is that it'll make sense once we can show you the work we've done. Okay, so that is the bulk of my presentation. The main pieces to be cognitive of is just that the portal change is coming, and that the level of hierarchy is, sort of the main change there. And then likewise, it would be something that putting the description pieces in there would be quite useful. Go ahead and put in any other questions you have into the text box, and I will get those on deck. I also needed to mention one other thing here. The ILCs. Last week I met with, or did a training session with a good chunk of folks from the ILCs. One of the things that we're still sort of working on is what level of access they should have. Months ago, when we first were going to bring them on, but they hadn't been trained yet, I asked folks to let me know if they wanted to have to approve ILC changes, and that I do have a few requests out there to set that up for a few counties, but I do want to offer that again. Um, when a user makes a change to your records, all right, for the most part, users are able to make changes without it having to be approved by someone at your office. That includes ILCs. So if you want to make them have to, basically set it, I can set it up so that when someone edits your records, right? So we've talked, if you've sat through these trainings previously, you know that status is what makes something show or not show on the portal and PurePlace, right? And that waiting for approval records show up in Care Director, but don't show up in the portal and PurePlace. And gives you the opportunity to look over what was changed and approve it. If you are interested in setting up your records so that only people in your office can change records without approval, and if someone from another office, like an ILC, makes a change, that we track, that you get notified of what the change is, that is a functionality we can do, where users are able to, that users outside of your office won't be able to set a record to approved, and that the owner of the record, in this case me, would get notified that a change happened, and then we would be able to check and see what changes were made and say, okay, I agree with that, let me approve it. So, it's something that I do want to offer out there again as we start getting new users in the system to edit records. All right, let's see what I got here as far as questions go. All right. April's actually looking at the taxonomy tree in the system and is wanting to know what the differences are between the service taxonomy terms and the related concepts. What you want to look at is the taxonomy terms. That's the super big list of 17,000 things. The related concepts are functionality we don't currently use. So, for the most part, if you want to take a look and see what a specific taxonomy record does, we can come in here and look at absent parents, and then you can, kind of like you do on a provider, you can see if there's any subrecords underneath there, and of course I picked one without one. If I were to do adolescents, I'm sure I'll have some subrecords there. And of course I don't, but you're wanting to look at the service taxonomy terms there, not the related concepts. All right, next question is from Courtney. Will there be a new search able to find things if they are spelled wrong, or if they're plurals and entered in regular? Not out of the box. I have worked out a way of sort of working. I've created a way to basically set plurals and spelling sort of at a system level. However, haven't quite had the time, and we've been busy on the overall redesign to sit down and state, okay, anytime someone types in, I don't have a rule set around it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Trying to set up a way of saying, okay, every time nursing home exists, let me go ahead and add nursing homes. That's something we can do. It's just it requires coming up with all of those scenarios, and I just don't have that just yet. So it is something I figured out how to do, but it's just something we don't have sort of the rules set around it to do it. Okay. The next question is just to show the sort of sub-provider piece again. So I'm going to cheat and open up my existing records. All right. So in this case, right, I have 3 different care director providers in the system. Think of these as records that have different locations. All right. In a world where I need to say that my office location is the sub-provider of the main location, it's just a matter of coming into the provider record, clicking on this parent provider lookup here, and searching on what my home location would be. In this case, the home office, which is care director. And then saving the record. In a world where you are looking at a parent provider and you want to see what sub-records it has, it is in sub-providers. And that'll show you any records that are related to it in the system. Additionally, let's say you've gone ahead and you've created, 3, 4, X number of satellite offices to your primary office. The transfer provider page here does allow us to copy the programs from one to the other. You set your original provider, you set the one you want to copy it to. It thinks for a second. You do have to give it a date. And then from here, you can select what programs you want to copy from one to the other. So we do have the tool set to say, okay, I need to come in here and I've made 2, 3, 4, 12 child providers. I set this, I figure out which ones I want to copy, I can tell it what I want to copy, and then you just hit transfer. And it'll think for a minute and then give us our pieces. No, okay. So, all right. So the next question up is, will the ILCs have access to edit existing records or just create new ones? At least at the moment, until someone needs them to just be able to create new ones, they are able to edit existing records. Now, if you want them to only be able to create new records for your county, shoot me a mail and let me know that. As it's set right now, they can create new records and edit records. My sort of toggle there is whether or not those records require approval or not. If we do want, to restrict them to just being able to make new records, that's something I can look into. And Sue's saying that she doesn't have access to the taxonomy piece, which I'll look at your security role here in a minute, and I should be able to add that in for you. Okay. So, So that was my piece for today's presentation, essentially. It's just to give you guys an idea that something's coming. Um, we've put a great deal of work into the portal itself. I can't wait to show it to you. I personally find it greatly exciting. And the pieces we talked about today, the stuff with the levels of the hierarchy and putting in descriptions, is just informational. We'll probably sort of assign out to say, take a look at your descriptions in October's monthly meeting. And I hopefully can tweak these views a little bit and these dashboards to give you guys a better sort of 360 view of how that stuff works before you're having to go through your existing records. So we have a new portal. It is coming. It is exciting. We have a few new functions in there. We have new search tools. We've got the ability to look at care plans and do info requests. And then we are starting to work with the ILCs and give them access to the system. And if you have any needs around that, shoot me an email and I'll see what I can do to get you settled. So that was what I had to present today. I appreciate you joining, and next time we meet, I will be able to show you what the portal looks like. Quite excited about that. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.